Hello and welcome to What is Magic, a series of videos that I've created having a discussion with some of the most interesting and some of the most creative minds in magic currently about what magic is. We talk a little bit more philosophically about magic, what magic means to our audiences, what magic means to us, and how we can be the best magicians possible for our audiences. In this episode, I speak to Geraint Clarke, the current CEO of Ellusionist, one of the largest and most successful magic shops in the world. But Geraint is a talented magician in his own right, not just CEO of Ellusionist. He has so much to offer, and there's a few really interesting insights that he gives in this chat with products and the magic industry and how things work, and that might help shape how you purchase products and how you think about products and how you think about magic in the future and going forward. So please do sit back, enjoy this chat with Geraint Clarke. Geraint, thank you for joining me for this video. I'm really happy to have you today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate being on the show.
Well, I hope that this is really interesting for everyone. And the first question that I want to dive straight into, in your opinion, in your own mind, in your own thoughts, it's a very simple question of what is magic?
Yeah, I mean, I have a tamer view than a lot of people. I think it's an entertainment form where you suspend some belief structures in people, whether that be something they thought to be true through science or religion or through their experience. And yeah, it's that feeling they get where they go, oh my God, everything I've learned to this point cannot be possible because this thing happened and it has no explanation. So yeah, I mean, it's how I feel. It's for the audience, you know.
So this initially is really interesting to me because you started by saying it's magic is, performance that affects people, but then you said that it affects people in a way that makes them question real life things. So the reason for me opening with this question for you is I wondered if you would touch on things outside of magic, because as magicians, we get so obsessed with us doing magic tricks,
Mm.
when in fact there are many forms of magic. So the fact that you've listed, science and belief structures and all of these kinds of things, and that magic is linked to that, for me is really interesting. Is there anything because this kind of conversation is one that doesn't often happen in magic about why magic is and what magic is and the philosophy of it. So now that you know that question, is there anything that you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a break, isn't it? It's a break from normal life. I think people are so bogged down by life, by ill parents and grandparents and bills and taxes and we talked just before we kind of came on, but the money system and changes of governments, which are just in the news right now, and there's so many things going on in people's world every single day. It just provides a little holiday, just a nice little break of like, oh my God, like this is absolutely astounding. And you don't have to necessarily then be bogged down in the details of that. You can just enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge of belief structures, I think.
That is moving towards the more substantial part that excites me and that I hope
Mm.
will excite the people who are watching this, because the way you've explained it as magic is this little escape. I don't know if you're familiar with flow science and with that kind of thing. Flow science is when humans are in a state of flow, we're performing
Oh,
our
like deep
best.
work.
Things.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did some research with some award-winning neuroscientists who have something called the Flow Genome Project, and we used it. We looked at using magic as a means of therapy, and then
Mm.
there's also the fantastic charity Breathe Magic, and
Mm.
they run workshops that basically help support people with various illnesses, and it's used as a means of therapy. So the fact that
Mm.
you said it's an escape, I think is a great way to sum up what is magic. Is an escape from reality. In line with that, do you remember what your first experience of, in whatever context magic happened? Do you remember your first experience in life of something magic?
I guess there's a literal sense, I can give a literal example. I think my first experience of like magic, we got a new teacher when I was younger called Mr. Parker. He was in primary school. And that was the first time I'd ever seen charisma in real life.
Mm.
So I was like, oh my God, this guy can sing, dance, he can play rugby, he's good at baseball, he's a good authoritative teacher, he's good at breaking down the class. It became less about being spoken to, more involved. So yeah, I think that was the first time I was a kid, and I was like, oh my God, like how is it the entire assembly just shut up and this guy just walked in the room in silence. That was interesting to me. Literal magic, I started a lot later than a lot of people. I started magic when I was 16. So I was watching MTV Base and I saw Dynamo do
Yeah.
some Dynamo shuffles to Wyclef Jean in a club. And then Wyclef Jean jumps up on the seats and he runs around the club and he's going crazy. And I think he did the haunted card where it jumps out of the deck. We won't say how it's done. And honestly, that was the first time that I ever thought magic was cool, because until then, magic was, glittery waistcoats and playing card ties and, producing flowers and adults almost like laughing. Oh, there's a magician at the wedding. There's a magician. So yeah, I think that was the first time I saw literal magic being cool.
I'm going to touch on your teacher more, because for me, for these conversations, this is the more interesting thing, I think. But I forget that Dynamo was, for many years, he was had a great deal with MTV and was had a deal with Adidas for a long time as well. And he was that. I remember that the ads of it was on MTV. It was an ad for like the Adidas house, and every year they would throw a party. And they would get all of the coolest celebrities to go there in rap and hip hop and fashion and stuff. And I remember seeing Dynamo in the ads for those parties that they threw. And I remember it looking so cool, like you say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's mind blowing. So, and then obviously got into reruns of David Blaine Street Magic and things, which opened my eyes more. But yeah.
Well, moving back to the teacher, this I think has a really great connection with perhaps what might be really helpful to magicians, because most magicians will be familiar with Dynamo. Dynamo has been very successful and has been a global superstar. But what people might not necessarily appreciate in magic is that just walking into a room with charisma can have more of a magical effect on someone than making a playing card fly out of a deck of cards. So that is the really interesting thing. So
I have a game that people can play, by the way, which is go to a restaurant with your friends, have a nice meal, have a good time. Who does the waiter or waitress hand the bill to at the end? That's the person with invisible charisma. Like whoever gets the bill is the person who's saying something without saying something. So just put it to the test with your friends and you'll be surprised.
Next time I'm out with friends, whether it be a cafe or dinner or whatever, I'm going to do this, because
they never ask. Well, a waiter will come over and they won't go, oh, sorry, who's paying? They'll just place it down in front of one person and they leave.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And this is sociology, right? This is in their mind, they've already chosen who's kind of the dominant character within the group. And they know that if they leave it with that person, at least the terminal will be safe, because that person has been identified as the most trustworthy person or the most interesting person or the person who keeps the group together. So that's a really interesting thing. And as I say, I think that often is something that gets sidelined in magic with magicians, because they focus so much on the tricks. And this reminds me of a saying, I think it was Paul Daniels who said it: a magician can show you a trick and it will be a trick. Another magician can show you exactly the same trick and it will be a miracle. And it's nothing to do with the trick. It's all to do with your charisma, your persona, how you treat people. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this chat with you, because I think these kinds of discussions and getting magicians to think about these kinds of things. What do you add? If you take away the trick and you just have you, what is it about you that can make people feel like you felt with that teacher in school? How will they remember you? That for me is so far the most interesting first memory of magic that I've heard.
Yeah, thank you.
But speaking about that memory that you have as a child, what do you think about the current state of magic or the current image of magic? You also said about how when you were growing up, when you were 16 and you saw Dynamo being really cool, and that was the first time you saw magic not be, middle-aged men and glittery ties and and
Yeah.
the stereotype. So what do you think about magic right now as it is?
Look, I've got a dim view of it right now. You know, it's this is the thing. I kind of want to preface this by there's a lot of exciting people within magic. So, and I'm privileged to be in the position I'm in, developing, filming, producing, and selling magic as a livelihood, and have been doing for 10 years or more before that when I self-produced. But right now, I feel like it's overly saturated, and I feel like the problem with saturation is that the quality goes down because everyone's racing to get this thing out. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I used to develop tricks for like 3, 4 years before anyone would even see them. And I think now there's a panache to having your name in lights and to just publish something.
Hmm.
And no one's honest about the sales. And I know they're not because I hear what they say and I can see the sales. So,
Hmm.
or they forget that I'm in the industry. Perhaps they'll work with another company and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I sold 20,000." I'm like, "Oh yeah," and then I'll like speak to the other company and say, "You sold 20,000?" And they're like, "No, 3,000."
Hmm.
So I think that creates a really bad feedback loop. So you've got people lying about sales through embarrassment or through the need to build up their social capital, which incentivizes, from a financial perspective, people who haven't published yet to put something of theirs out. Like, my friend's trick's not even very good, and
Hmm.
he sold 20,000. So my trick, if I release my idea, I bet you I could sell more than him. And then they don't. And then they go, "Oh, wow, why did mine fail?" And their friend will say to them, "Oh, I saw you put your trick out. How many did you sell?" "Oh yeah, same, round same." Like I haven't got the full numbers yet, but I think they made like 15,000 of them, so and they're all sold out.
Yeah.
And they just kind of have this negative feedback loop, and it just brings more people in with more low quality ideas that
Hmm.
are underdeveloped. We haven't said yes to an idea at Illusionist and produced it since April.
Wow.
So all of the submissions that we get, we haven't said yes to producing one since April and actually released it. Do you know what I mean? Like since
And
April.
go on, go on.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, if you say everything's the best, "Oh, it's the best color change, guys," and it's like I see all these emails go out every day. God, Garrett Thomas says this is the best, and then the next week it's like now Henry Harriet says this is the best, and it's like it's got nothing to do with these guys who are incredible performers who are giving quotes to something that they really like, but it's this framing that everything's the best. Not everything can be
Mhm.
the best, and it might be that subjectively the best to that one performer. But from a mass market, receptiveness of that trick, it can't be the best. And we just get bored of it. Like at Illusionist, we just get bored of how many things that come out that profess to be the newest, best thing. And we've kind of got a simple recipe, which is like, would we spend our own money on this?
Is this something that has changed from years past with Illusionist, where now you
Yeah.
have a much more rigorous uh,
Yeah.
system in place for accepting submissions?
Yeah. So, when I joined the company, it used to be 3 releases a week. And
Right.
I said, guys, this is too much. Like, how can no one's got an infinite amount of free cash to spend. And so this is and it's obviously then it creates a different problem. If you release 3, 10, 20 things a week, anything that you did produce is going to get less attention because it's
Hmm.
sharing the attention with the other 19 releases. So yeah, in my view, companies like Murphy's and Penguin that release multiple releases a week, I think sadly it affects their sales. Like it has
Hmm.
to. Like I don't know for a fact. I don't work at those businesses, but it has to because they worry about movies. When
Yeah.
Barbie and Oppenheimer came out, both movies were worried that the other one would steal the attention from the other one. It became a thing where the actors were like, "Oh my God, I'd go see both," because they couldn't be seen to having a preference. So
This
yeah,
is
I mean,
interesting that you say this because I put a poll on my review channel a few
okay,
months ago, and I asked all my subscribers, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that magic tricks are produced cheaply, but maybe you have to replace them more often, at a lower quality? Or would you prefer that magic tricks are a bit more expensive, but they actually last you. They're actually quality products that have been thought out and that haven't just been like, oh yeah, that's an idea. We can package that, get that off,
Yeah.
get it manufactured, get 5,000 units manufactured in China, get an
Yeah.
80% markup on it, cover all of it, and extract as much as possible from it, rather than thinking about quality. Because this is the thing as well, isn't it? That in terms of products in the magic industry, certain things have sold consistently for the last 10 years or 15
Yeah.
years. So if you make a really good product, people will buy that for a really long time.
Hmm.
But you have to give that value to them. So that's really interesting that you've seen this saturation. And do you think that's because more people are getting into magic, or do you think that's because like the growth of social media magic, there's more people wanting to release things because it's easier to publish now?
Yeah, I think it's easier to publish now, and more people want to release things. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily about more people. In fact, I'd say probably COVID wiped out a lot of the audience of Magic.
Mm, okay.
Tons of working pros had to stop working. There was a coronavirus support group on Facebook, and I've spoken to people since that dropped out of Magic because they had to go drive for Amazon,
Yeah.
or they were a performer and they used to care, but they went and got a day job that actually paid the bills when the
Mhm.
time hit. One guy is doing really well. He does like coding and email marketing stuff. And he said to me, he used to be a full busy performer in Toronto, and he was fully booked out. He had a manager. Then COVID hit, wiped out
Mhm.
all his gigs. He lived off his savings for a year and was like, we're still in lockdown. I have to do something else. Like, I have to choose
Yeah.
a different career because this isn't going to be it.
Mhm.
So sadly, I feel like a lot of the demand probably fell out back
Great.
then.
Based on that, because obviously you can see the sales of Illusion sales, is that over the last 6 months, over the last 12 months, as economies have been growing a little bit, and as even though living costs are rising, and especially in the UK, for example, it's electricity is the most expensive in the UK than any other country in the world. So
Yeah.
bills are going up for people. So do you see over the last 6 to 12 months sales improving? And do you see the magic community starting to build up again, more sales each month, more interest, more engagement on the videos that Illusionist posts? Do you see that becoming healthier again?
Between COVID and last year, we didn't really have a great time. It was
Mm,
just, business as usual. It wasn't a record year by any stretch, and it wasn't, disastrous where everyone left, because obviously
yeah.
we kept our team. But yeah, it was just kind of this stasis, this kind of stagnant period where we weren't sure what was going on. Last year was amazing for us. Last year we did the rebrand, and when you said about what the focus is, we just focused on certified bangers only, and I just see it being copied now throughout the industry. Oh, it's a certified banger. Like, that's what we did, and we had an amazing run of tricks for like 12 months of
Mhm.
Heartbeat, Any Thought of Card to Pocket, Scribe, um, Unreal Card Magic, like everything we touched turned to gold. And then,
Most of which I purchased, by the way.
yeah, thank you. And again, it's just like less is more. Less is
Yeah.
more. Like these. So there's a great book called Perennial Seller, and it's like what you said earlier. If the product's good enough, it'll sell forever.
Mhm.
So that's just kind of what we concentrate on. We just concentrate on things that are just so good that 3 months from now, you're meeting a magician at the Magic Circle and you're having a beer, and you say, "Hey, what do you do at your gig?" And they go, "Oh, I do this, this, and oh, this new thing I'm trying." And you go, "Wait, what was that second to last? What is that?" And they, "Oh my God, you don't know this? It's an illusionist thing. Let me show you." Like, that's the kind of conversations I want to try and propagate.
This is really, uh, if you can shed some light on this, because this is something that I've always found interesting. Right, you say about some magic companies have a priority to volume of releases, quantity of releases, but do you, at Illusionist, do you see when you release a product? So, for example, the Scribe was
Hmm.
something that I purchased.
Hmm.
You obviously you release the trailer, people are excited. It's something new. It's something, and who doesn't like buying something new for themselves, whether that be clothing or a watch or whatever it may be. So
Hmm.
people are excited, and then you get some pre-orders. You get 1,000 pre-orders, and then you release it, and then you manufacture more, and you get another 1,000 orders. Do you see a really sharp decline after that? Because so
Yeah.
much magic is being released, and then
Yeah.
people forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, I say the first month is where you make, let's say, 70% worth of sales. So on a percentage basis, you're looking at like that first month being huge. If the marketing's done correctly, that first month will be where it goes.
Mhm.
And then it's like the movie industry. Like, sadly, I've had these conversations with the artists where they say, like, how many do you think I'll sell? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And they go, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, I honestly don't know. And if anyone tells you they do know, they're lying, because
Mhm.
I don't know. Things catch wind. Our job is to make it look good. Our job is to make it known within the industry,
Mhm.
via emailing and social media and all those things. Our job is to deliver it and make sure customers get their package and that they're happy and that everything's sorted out. But we can't predict sales. Like, we just can't. Some things that I thought were terrible when I first saw them, like, oh, this won't.
Mhm.
I say terrible in the sense that, like, maybe we'll sell 200 of these. Like, they've gone on to sell, obviously we're talking years now. They've gone on to sell like 10,000 units easy. Probably
It,
more. And then
this
some
was
things I
actually
thought
go on.
were great have done the opposite. Some things I'm like, wow, this is incredible. It will sell like 700 units. It's just a bomb.
So this is what I was going to ask as well. That when I started Everything Magic Pro, the review channel, one of my ideas for this was not just to review new tricks.
Hmm.
It's also to bring spotlight to old things that I think are, as you said, certified bangers. These are things
Yeah.
that I use and have used for 15 years of performing. And time goes by, 5 years go by, people forget about that. There's been 1,000 releases since then. And
Exactly.
also there's generations, as you said, with COVID, lots of people fell out of magic. They went to other career paths, other industries, and they might not come back to magic for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And there's a big gap. And then also we have
Hmm.
new, younger magicians coming in who just don't know about what existed before them. So this was one of my goals, to spread awareness of effects, whether that be Ellusionist or any other manufacturer. I remember I did a review of, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was by Colin Rose. So Colin, I'm not sure if he's still with us, but Colin owned a company called Five of Hearts Magic Productions, and
Okay.
I have great memories of him as a child. My parents took me to him, and they paid for me to have tuition with him for a couple of years, and he really taught me about how to structure magic and build performances.
Hmm.
And there was this little boat that sits in your pocket, and it was designed in a specific way. I think it was made in conjunction with Wayne Dobson, and
Okay.
it's an invisible card routine. So if someone thinks of a card, you produce a purse frame, and then you pull their card, and the purse frame's empty, and you pull their card out of the invisible purse, and it's one that they've just thought of. And this, you can't buy this anywhere anymore.
Hmm.
But I thought, if I review this, that will bring spotlight to it. Maybe someone can reproduce it. Maybe someone can buy the rights from Five of Hearts. Maybe that will create some buzz around this again. And and I did the same with a trick that Ali Bongo taught me like 20 years ago with
Yeah.
a Vanishing Silk. And everyone was messaging me saying, you need to release that. It's not mine to release. But
Hmm.
I've never, ever seen any handling, anything like what Ali showed me. And he also gave me the gimmick at the Magic Circle, and I've never seen another gimmick like it.
Mm.
So I don't know where he got them, but never have I seen anything like it. And every time I show a magician, they say, "Wow, that's incredible." So
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot to be said about that. Is there anything we can do as magicians, other than, like that 1 month that we meet up with our magician friend and we're showing them a couple of things, and then we say, "Oh, have you not seen this? Oh, Illusionist released this like 3 months ago. Yeah, you should pick one up. They're great." Other than that, is there anything that you think, as magicians and consumers,
Mm.
that we can do or we should do to make the magic market healthier? Recommend high quality products, of course, but is there anything
I
else we can do as individuals?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is to actually go out and perform.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. Like, you'd be shocked at how many people we speak to that have never performed a trick in their entire life, ever. But they enjoy the puzzle of magic and they enjoy the methods of magic. Or they show their wife or their best mate Dave, but they don't necessarily go out to a stranger. Now, one thing that the Daily Magician Boys said on their podcast was that they couldn't believe that Illusionists would just go out on the street and grab strangers to perform to. They just couldn't believe it. And they couldn't believe that I was doing it. They were like, "You're the CEO. How come you're going over and doing a warm-up set on those guys? Like, that doesn't make any sense to us." I'm like, well, I can't sell it if we don't know that it works. But, again, a lot of other companies, they use their staff in the trailers, or they hire actors to come and sit in or stand in and watch a performance, or to go sit at a bar. And that's fine, but it's not a true representation of what everyone will do when you go out on the street and you do it correctly.
Yeah.
And that's why they get backlash. And that's why, I'd say for 2 years, we've remained unscathed in a traditional sense of like the backlash and the mob coming after us, is because the stuff works. Like, everything we're selling works. You could go out and do it. So yeah, we make sure, from that respect, that we go and perform it. And I think the love of magic, like I love magic so much. Like, I'm literally under the microphone, I'm like shuffling a deck of cards and doing cardistry moves now. But I love it. And when I go out, it's rugby season here in Wales now. When I go to the stadium next week and I go out for a few drinks, I'll be putting a pot of jam in my pocket, and I'll be putting a stripper deck in my pocket, marked. And I guarantee you, I'll get free drinks and I'll make friends with strangers, and, I'll just go do it. So I think that's the number one thing, is like, I'd say a lot of people don't go and perform these tricks. And perhaps they get a negative opinion of those tricks then, because they don't understand the power of it. And it's basic psychology with any product. It's called time to value, which is like, when do you get the value of a magic trick? You get it when you actually perform it to a stranger. That's when you get the value of it. So until you do that, it is worthless to you, and it is overpriced, and the gimmick is because all these things that you think about it are true because you've got no value from it. And guess what? Yeah, they did charge you $40 for a double backer. Yes, but you're missing the point. The point is, go perform it and get the value. There's no value in this. There's none. You get a deck of cards. Oh my God, it's $12.95, and I had to pay customs. It's like, yes, you did. And now go perform and get extract all the value from it for as long as you can. I was in Ireland. We filmed Pocket Roulette on St. Paddy's Day. Just so happened to be other magicians there, and one of them said to me, he's like, "Why are you out doing tricks in the street? You're the CEO of Ellusionist. Like, why are you out doing tricks in the street?" I'm like, "Are you joking? I'm staying in a mansion in Ireland for free, and I'm drinking whiskey for free on St. Paddy's Day. This is the life, mate. That we're so. I just have to go do a few cards. Like, don't feel sorry for me. I'm lucky. I spent all day. We went to an amazing taco restaurant. They're like, why are you upset with me? How is this beneath me to go and do this thing that we're actually telling people to go do?"
This loops back to what you were saying about sales of tricks with magicians, about how they have this bravado and they have to live up to something. It goes back to that, someone saying, "Well, this is beneath you." You'll see, but the whole reason you've become CEO of Illusionist, as well as all of the expertise and talent and experience, all of that stuff that you bring as the job.
I'm not sure about any of that, but yeah.
Well, the whole thing, the whole catalyst for all of those things and you becoming CEO is the love of magic. Without the love of magic, you never would have ended up here.
Yeah. I mean,
so I love that they thought it was beneath you, and you said, no, this is a goal. This is to be here performing magic for people. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, the camera crew were outside at one point in Ireland, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go into this whiskey bar," and like, well, I'll get everyone drinks. And I went in, and I'm very lucky that I have quite a unique accent. I start speaking, and this American couple was like, "Oh my God, you're from England?" I'm like, "No, I'm actually from Wales." And they're like, "Wales? Where's?" And like, we get chatting, and then I call the guys in. I'm like, "Come and film this." Like, they were receptive anyway.
Yeah.
Then that turned into us being in that bar, getting loads of performances from loads of strangers and having a good time. We always find ourselves in these like lucky situations. I think I think it has to come from a certain place of being genuine. Otherwise, it won't come across. But yeah, look, I mean, I've got a lot of passion behind this because in the last few years, I've been, sailing the ship, and I can see what's really going on, and I can see the lies that are necessarily they're propagated within the industry in a certain way, and it's like definitely frustrates me. The whole reason that we were enamored by David Blaine, like everyone, was because he was out on the streets doing it for real people. Not celebrities, not pre-show, not taking someone's phone with a consultant behind the scenes to get something. It was this idea that he walked up to a stranger. And obviously those elements are within TV to hide the method from people anyway. But truth be told, I carry very few gimmicks. And if I go out, I like to go out with that intention, of like, take a deck of cards, and like, if we meet people and it's a good interaction, then I'll show them something. But yeah, people could really help themselves out if they go perform. If magic could come back in a big way if they actually went and performed.
I love that. As a tip for people, for any magician watching this, as a tip to say, if they don't perform very much, or if they're buying these tricks and maybe they feel a bit let down, maybe they open the trick and they have that buyer's remorse of, oh, that's not what I expected, or it's simpler than I expected. It may be simple. And this is, one of the reasons why I started my review channel, because I wanted to explain to people, as a professional magician, this gets crazy reactions. And there's some products that I've reviewed that I don't think they're good products, but I've performed them for people and they love it. And, I'm not, as much as we love magic, we're entertaining our audience. If my audience loves a certain trick, even if I hate that trick, I'm performing that trick for them, because I want them to have the best possible experience of magic. But that leads us really nicely and naturally into when you're performing your magic. For example, we said when we initially started speaking via Instagram, you said about you perform any thought of card quite a lot, and you actually perform it in the real world. And I think that's such a great trick as well. It's such in its construction, in how clever the effect is, and how amazing the result is. So what is it when you're performing magic for people? So you've done your first two tips. You've got magicians who are giving you advice. You should buy this, you should buy that. You're going out and you're performing it. The next thing is, when you're performing magic, what are you trying to do to your audience? What criteria does your magic need to meet for you to say, you know what, this is what I want to show them?
I think it has to be understandable. It has to be strong. It can't be too process heavy. There's tricks for magicians like ACAN, which I don't like. I don't like ACAN. I've said it before. I make no secret of the idea that I don't like ACAN. I think ACAN is a trick for a magician. Understanding a deck of cards, understanding a shuffle, understanding the impossibility. For a normal person, this idea that, and here's the thing, it's like, I said this in a blog post about mentalism. Scott, I'm going to read your mind. Yeah, think of your star sign. Okay.
Yeah.
It's got an A in it, right? And then you go, yeah. And then immediately, the person you're doing it to thinks you already know it. So every process after that is quite cringy. Does that make sense? So like, this is coming through fuzzy. Maybe we could write this down. No, I'm going to change my. Like, they have this anticipation that you already know it, and it ruins the crescendo.
So you like a streamlined magic trick. You like someone.
No, I'm saying almost like the way that I do it is almost like a proposition bet. So I love 2-card Monty because they're not expecting the kicker. I love Pot of Jam by James Brown because they're not expecting the kicker. And there's almost an explosive reaction from people when that happens because they weren't expecting it. Even something as simple as a double lift color change, which the French twins have an incredible version of coming soon called Below. But when you show them the 7 of hearts and you give them the card and you don't draw attention to it, they don't know to look. They don't know. So now when you say, I could change this in your hand, they're like, no way. They're like, but when you say, name a card, 7 of hearts, name a number, 17. Look, what I want you to do is count down. And before you've even finished speaking, they're going to go, oh, my card's going to be at my number.
Yeah.
They've already assumed that that's the trick. And now it loses complete power. Now it becomes boring. And then you do this stupid stuff then of like, oh, separate. If you would have gone one further, you would have had this. If you would have gone one back, you would have had this. But you didn't. 17. Was there a reason you chose 17? What was the reason you chose 17? Does it mean
I'm
something to
getting
you?
flashbacks of hundreds of magicians' faces saying
I know.
exactly the same sentence in my mind
Exactly.
right now.
And then they're like, oh, boom, 17, turn it over, yeah. And then people go, oh, wow, great. Because they already expected you to be correct. It's why, Pete Turner's got a great version where he talks about Father Christmas. And he takes them down notches for them to assume that he's wrong. So that when he's right, then there's an explosion.
Yeah.
So he's like, before you turn that card over, let me just tell you a story about, just believing blindly in things. And he tells the story about how Father Christmas, Santa Claus was ruined for him as a kid. And there's this deep emotional script that he's got. And at the end, he's like, look, you can turn that card over and you could potentially ruin the belief that you've got in this, or you could just put it back down in the deck. And then they go, okay. And like 9 times out of 10, they go to put it back down in the deck, and he just picks it up and he gives it a flash as he puts it in. And if anyone catches that it's the correct card, they'll be blown away. It's so smart. But yeah, I think that's really how I look to perform is
that's really amazing as well. Sorry, go on. How you look to perform is
basically expectations and reality. So it's like, if the expectations meet the reality, you're flat. If they expect that card to be at 17 and it is, it's like, huh, great. If they don't expect to be holding their card, they are. Now that gap is where all the explosion of reaction comes from.
So the separation of expectation versus what actually happens is, I think, something certainly a tip that anyone looking to enhance their magic and improve it can learn from. And also the fact that you mentioned Peter Turner and this routine that he has. Everything that we do in life is a story, right? When we say to our friend, like you said about going to a rugby match, when you go, after that, the next weekend, for example, you meet up with friends and you say, oh, I went to a rugby match last weekend and I showed someone a trick and everyone went crazy and then I got a free drink. And that's a story. Everything we do as humans is a communication of some kind of story. Yet when it comes to magic, magicians leave out the story. There's no story. It's just say as I do. Sorry. It's pick a card. I shuffle the cards. I mix the cards. I put these cards down, cut the cards, and there's no story there. So I think this certainly, in combination with your idea of exceeding their expectation of a trick, adding some kind of story that's personal to you, or that's some sort of interesting idea that people can add to it, I think they can't go far wrong with their magic moving forward with those two, if they just work on those two things, as long as the trick is somewhat.
It doesn't always have to be a polished script either. But I think it's a lot of people don't breathe. They're so scared about getting caught that they rush to execute the method and then end up getting caught. So they're like, oh my God, I hope they don't catch my top change. I hope they don't catch my top change. Quick, hold your hands flat, quick, like that. And you're drawing so much attention to yourself. You're acting so erratically. And they're like, oh my God, like what? It's like, God, I remember being in school and like one of my friends was taking a pee in a bush. And he said, don't look, I'm taking a pee. And I went, what? And I like turned around and it's such a weird thing to shout. Yeah. I'm sure you've been out with friends and like, oh, don't look over there. But it's, that's a celebrity or that's a, someone footballer or whatever. And don't look, table 3 is, and you're like, what? And I think that happens in magic too. People are so scared about getting caught. I've been caught loads. And I've also not been caught loads, I don't have any value attributed to my personality from magic, none. Like if someone says, "Oh, I caught that," I go, "Nice, well done."
Yeah,
you're very perceptive, and I'll build them up.
And also the acknowledgement there, you're not hiding it, because the moment a human tries to hide something from someone, and the most basic form of this is as children, right? If something is kept from us, we desperately want to try and get it. So the moment a magician starts to run away and hide and be like, no, you didn't see that. No, that was.
Yeah.
The audience has this instinct to, oh, well, now I want to know, because
Well, it makes
now
you look
you're,
weak. It makes you look
yes,
weak. If you react in a passive, no, like, it makes you look like you can't
yeah.
deal with the truth, and then that person's like, oh wow, yeah, I've lost a bit of respect for you. Whereas, if they go, oh, I caught that, I'm like, oh, nice.
So maybe this is a future product for Illusionist, or anyone who might be watching this with tons of experience, because I know that from what I've seen of Etienne Predier,
Yeah,
he's excellent at this. He'll be working and he'll do table, bottle through table, and then the table behind him, they'll see it, and he
yeah,
doesn't care. He'll just
yeah,
perform it because it's not for them.
exactly.
And if they see it, they see it. They're going to
Yeah,
forget about it in a week anyway. So I think that a
that well, that that's the
instructions on
thing.
this, and instructions of how to deal with this would be so good.
Yeah, we were planning on doing it, of basically
Mm,
us going out and doing an entire project. I'll say it here now, so that if someone other magic company releases it, you know where they got the idea.
mm,
But
yes.
the idea would be that we go out and we don't perform any tricks to some groups, and show you how you could just have conversations with people, and how you approach. One thing I do when I approach a table is I don't go straight into a trick.
Hmm.
I like put the deck of cards down. What brings you out tonight? Why are you celebrating something? Oh, it's your birthday. No way. Be a bit more interested in those groups, and then it gets them excited about watching it. So we were going to show that, of like, okay, how do we go warm up? And sometimes we don't do a trick. Like, sometimes you sit down, you assess. Maybe they're too drunk. Maybe they're not really interested. It starts to rain. The angles aren't great. Whatever, and
Yeah.
you leave it. And the other thing would be, let's go show us failing for a few hours.
Mm,
Because like, if people stopped putting so much weight behind that, and I think, again, when you asked me earlier, what does magic mean to you? I said, it's not that
mhm.
serious to me. I love it, but I don't allow it to become part of my identity.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't give me any value, and it doesn't take away any value from me as a human being. And it shouldn't for the people watching this.
Hmm.
You're not just a magician. You're a human being with all your different thoughts and feelings. You're not just a magician. If you have that mindset, then whether someone criticizes your magic or not is
Hmm.
irrelevant, because it can't take you down personally. They said, oh,
That
didn't
we were
like,
talking about that, weren't we?
yeah,
Before we started recording this, we were talking about how we both fell out of magic for a bit of time because we felt like performing monkeys, and
yeah,
there was so much more to us as individuals, as humans, than just being known as, that's the guy who does magic tricks. When I need entertainment, that's the guy. But yeah, what else do you have? There's so much more that everyone brings to the table, more than
yeah,
just their magic.
yeah. I mean, look, this isn't to pump my own stock. I'm not a
Mm,
perfect person. I'll tell you this from yesterday. I was in Costa Coffee with my family, and I had a gift card that I had in my wallet from, like, Christmas, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder how much is on here." And I just paid for everyone's coffees, and they said, "Oh, there's £3.85 left on there." And I can see the board, and I can see that coffee is like £3.80. So I'm like, "That's one more
mm,
coffee." And I turn, and I can see an old lady counting pennies in her purse.
mm,
And I said, "Oh, here you are, darling. Here's a free coffee." And my family, "Oh, why'd you give her your gift card?"
yeah.
Just be a nice. Again, I'm not always nice. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Everyone has the capacity to not be a nice person sometimes. So this
Yeah.
isn't about me, but it was just about being a normal human being. Of
Hmm.
like, could you potentially make someone's day in a way that's not showing them the five of spades in your pocket?
This also brings us full circle back to what is magic, because
Yeah,
my fiance lives about an hour's drive north of me, right? So I have to drive every time I go to see her. Have to pass a toll road, or a toll
hmm,
bridge, and sometimes, depending on my mood, I'll pay for the car behind me. And
yeah, yeah,
I remember about a year ago, the person in the toll booth, they said, "Oh, do you know them?" I said, "No, I, I'm just
yeah,
doing a nice thing." And she said, "Oh, you're joking with me, aren't you?" I said, "No,
yeah,
why would I
exactly,
be
yeah,
joking? I'm literally just trying to be a good human."
yeah.
And I
It's
can't
so rare.
imagine how it feels to go through that toll booth and to be told, "Oh, person in front paid for you," and you to be like, and especially if that person's having a bad day, like that, the person who served you in Costa, if they're having a bad day, or even outside of work, if their things aren't going well for them, and then they see you,
Hmm.
give an old lady who's counting money to that, it all works together. People see that
Yeah, look,
we achieve
I,
more through love than conflict, right?
I'm not a spiritual person in a
Mm.
religious sense,
Yeah.
but I fully believe in karma. And my family
Mhm.
always joke to me, they're like, you can fall in shit and come up smelling of roses. Like, I'm very fortunate as a person, I'm very lucky. And, I've been to Vegas twice this year and come home in profit twice through roulette of all things. And my wife was with me and she lost all of her money in 20 minutes. And she's like, okay, I'll just watch you gamble. And she got excitement from, I'm like, to me, it's good karma. And I try
Mhm.
and look at those things. And I tell you one thing that's helped with, and maybe this can help some people too, which is like, I'm in a targeted position. Just naturally being a CEO of a big bad magic company is like,
Mhm.
there's going to be people there that don't like me without knowing me. And that's fine. And maybe I reject someone's trick or we refuse to work with a certain artist and then
Yeah.
they go off and say things about you online. But one thing that happened to me during the pandemic was I actually left Illusionist for a period. Actually, went freelance. I was doing my own blog until I became CEO. I was like not officially part of the team. I was, just advising, I guess, a couple days
Mhm.
a week. And I remember I got so much hate for this whole Back to Black campaign. So much hate. And it was supposed to be a campaign. Originally, the idea was that we would move from Magento to Shopify and we would put a timer and it would go back up and the website just never came back up. And there was an
Mhm.
SSL certificate error. We couldn't get it. You can't have an e-commerce store without an SSL because Google will block it and it'll say, hey, this website's dangerous. So it just turned into a complete show. And we didn't handle it well because I thought, well, if we email 40,000 people now on the wait list, or we email 120,000 people now on our email list to say it's broken, and then it comes up 15 minutes later,
Mhm.
we're going to ruin our potential of showing them what we've done. So we're like, let's just wait. Let's just wait. And I think we waited too long. And I think speculation leaked into the industry then that everyone's downloads have been stolen, which they haven't.
Mhm.
And it was bad. So yeah, if we had our time over, I would handle it way differently. But sometimes when you're in a situation, you don't always make the correct decision.
Yeah.
And I remember I was getting death threats, and my family were texting me to be like, "Are you okay?" Because
Mhm.
there were people on social media saying, "I hope you die. You've
Wow.
stolen my Justin Miller Bold Volume 2, and I wanted to watch it this weekend, and I hope you die."
Mhm.
And they were like, "Really? Like this? Really? Is this?" I'm like, "Look, I think this is the internet." And I
Yeah.
went to Tesco's and I helped an old lady get something from a high shelf. I'm 6'2". This is a standing desk for anyone that's like, why is it all towering above him? It's a standing desk. And I helped her get something down from a high shelf. She, oh, thank you, love. People have been watching me struggle for ages now. She's like, you're nicer than my grandson. And I was like, oh, probably not.
Wow.
Have a good day. Had
Yeah.
a little laugh and a joke and left. I came home and my dog was, wagging her tail. I thought, oh, no one cares. Like real
Mhm.
life is so different to internet life.
Yes.
She doesn't care that my website's not currently working. She doesn't think that I'm a villain or a thief because the website's
Mhm.
broke right now. So yeah, I always keep that in mind as well. It's like if I see someone collecting for charity at the end of a supermarket or something, I'll always, whatever their biggest donation is on their, card machine, I'll
Mhm.
always make sure I do it because I know that I'm like in a really lucky position. And that karma, I think, if you don't give it out, it's not coming back
Mhm.
to you ever. So yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, sometimes I'm gonna be a nice person to that guy, and then maybe 6 months later, some opportunity will fall in your lap. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that you were nice, maybe it didn't, and
Mhm.
it's chance. Who knows? But I'd rather err on the side of doing nice things because you can.
I think that's brilliant as a piece of advice for magicians as well, because back in 2001, when Street Magic first aired with David Blaine, there was a segment in that where Leonardo DiCaprio is interviewing David, and He says, why do you think you've become popular? And David said,
Mm.
well, everywhere I go, I show people, I share magic with people. I don't
Yeah.
care if I'm being paid for it. I don't care
Yeah.
if they, tip me or like, I don't care. I just want to share magic with as many people as I can. And that is a really fortunate position that magicians are in. I always say, people, just like with every magician, people will ask me, oh, do you ever get sick of it? And I'm like, no, how could I get sick of it?
Yeah.
When I tell people what I do, or when people find out what I do, just the same as any magician, the reaction is, oh my God, tell me more. Oh my God, you're a magician. Oh my, not
You've got to
many
make
people,
sure it doesn't go to your head, though, don't you? Because
yes, of course.
for every room and every social event you walk into,
Mm,
through knowing magic, you are de facto the most interesting person in that room.
yes.
Like the most interesting person. When I've been to weddings, my wife's friends, they all talking about me before the
Mhm.
wedding happens. Their brothers know about me, their cousins know about me. I'm walking in
Yeah.
with a certain aura
Hmm.
that they've created through the fact that I know some card tricks. That's an amazing position for all of us that do magic to be in. Is like you'll never have to break the ice ever again. Like
I think to help with that, anyone who may be struggling with that, because there are lots of magicians who are egotistical and have uh,
I've
uh,
met them, Scott.
far
I've
far
met
too
them.
much importance. So I think that practicing being gracious, and I forget if it was a magician or if it was a performer, variety performer, or another profession, but they said every time I go on stage, before I go on, I say I love you. As in I love the audience. The audience
Mm.
have come here,
Mhm.
they've taken their precious time, they've spent their money, their hard-earned money, and they've come to see me. I love my audience. I love my audience. I love my audience.
Mm.
And I think that there's certain grounding things like this, which maybe another future product, Illusionist or otherwise, how to stay grounded in magic, and how to the social aspect and the human aspect. But before this all gets way too long, because I feel like we could do a part two and a part three and
Yeah,
a
yeah.
part four.
If
I
people are
want to
interested, they can comment below on this video. Just
absolutely,
maybe comment part 2, please, or
yeah.
someone can comment, and then however many likes we get, me and Scott can arrange something.
Yeah, because this is the point of what you were talking about with Illusionist products, the value. If people are getting value from this, I would love to continue doing this and continue speaking to you
Mhm.
and other magicians who offer other insights, because you bring your own experience. But I think we'll move on to my kind of final question of,
Mhm.
we've spoken a lot about what magic was to you growing up, what it's been to you, how it's treated you, what your current thoughts are. But if there was something that you could think of in the future or currently that you would change about magic, what's something that you would like to see change, or that you think will change, some kind of change within magic?
Yeah, I think a positive change would be some form of lowering accessibility.
Mm,
So, right now there's people building audiences not through their love of magic or through sharing or teaching magic to young people, but straight up revealing it just to reveal
yes.
it. So, not necessarily to excite a brand new audience and invite them into the fold, which is one way of doing it with those tutorials, which I think is good because it becomes an introduction. But they do it on short form content, less than a minute, just expose, give someone the secret.
Yeah.
I think what that does is it devalues magic, it devalues performers, it lowers their ability to command high rates for
Hmm.
gigs because they've seen 4 or 5 secrets on Instagram now, and now they don't really value the time and effort you've put into it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think one thing is accessibility. Like hopefully something that would change is that the currency of secrets goes down so that people
Yeah.
stop trying to give it away or to exchange it for popularity.
Hmm.
And we're releasing Liquid Spectrum by Tobias Dostal soon, and it's taken years to produce to get the
Hmm.
gimmick to work in the way that Tobias wanted. Went through 3 different factories, one in Germany, 2 in China. It's taken a long time, and along that way, he's developed more on the trick, and he's added more routines and more little gimmicks that go on the side. And it's probably the best thing that could have ever happened because it's done 2 things. It's made the project better,
Hmm.
but it's created a ravenous audience for this particular trick because everything else is so accessible. Everything else
Yeah.
they can just go buy. It's there. They'll buy it. Or they hear about it and it's released next week. this idea that you have to wait years for a particular secret was
Mhm.
something that I was lucky enough to experience for me when Dan and Dave released their trilogy when I was like
Yeah.
16, 17. Chad Nelson, when he released the clip shift, that was when I knew the
Mhm.
clip shift. I used to practice it in my parents' garden for like hours. When I knew that and it wasn't released and it was like an underground secret, I valued it more. I
Mhm.
put a lot more time and effort into it. So yeah, I think a certain level of accessibility, hopefully the saturation stops. I mean, part of what we've done is we've expanded into the marketing space to help other businesses, because there's a trade-off for us, which is we could copy everyone else and just pump out as much as we can, or we can keep the quality high, but lower our time reliance and go do something else with our time,
Mhm.
so that everything that we do then becomes like a passion project of like, okay, this is something we actually believe in, rather than we're just
Yeah.
putting it out to pay the bills this week. Yeah, hopefully that changes. I don't know if it will, but I hope that it does. So I guess we'll
I
end on
I
that.
I agree with you so much that this is one of the reasons, one of the most common questions that I get on my review channel is poster performance.
Mm,
Why?
yeah,
For what reason? First of all, it takes an enormous amount of resources. Not only do I spend many hours recording these reviews, purchasing these products, and there are some companies who do send me a product or two for free, but that is not the case all the time. So I don't, and I'm a professional magician, so I don't have all the time in the world to go out and record and have a friend come record with me. And so one of the things that I always think is people are commenting this and saying, "Oh, post the performance," and then I say, "Well, magic doesn't belong on a screen. You've got the trailer. Go and look at Illusionist trailer. That
yeah,
shows you everything you need to know. And then watch a couple of reviews by reviewers, see what you think of it, see what their opinion is. But for what reason do we need to expose magic? Because there are a lot of magicians who are trying to perform magic tricks, as you say, instant accessibility, and they
hmm
learn it and they don't give it the right time and practice, and then they're exposing things just by
hmm
innocently posting their performance. So I agree with you. I hope that, and this is why I'm kind of not against it. I just don't put a lot of time into recording performances because one, I think a lot of people on my channel trust my opinion. You
hmm
know, I've provided services to the British royal family, to celebrities, to many big companies, clients. I have that experience, and my website's out there, and all of that shows that. And also, as I said to you before we started recording, I'm always happy to speak to people and have dialogue and discuss things. And so for my channel has never been, the idea of it has never been to be narrow minded and just tell you to do one thing. It's, I'm going to give you some information, I'm going to give you my thoughts, and what you do with that is up to you. And I
yeah,
don't think including videos and exposures, and I try to explain everything, exposing the least amount possible. And the more practice I get at this, the better my reviews get at not exposing things. So I am in complete agreement with you. I think that all of this kind of exposing of magic tricks just for people to go, oh, that was really clever. I know the secret now. Like,
yeah.
share with a friend, and then it devalues it so much.
Well, look, and this is something we talked about off camera, but I'm prepared to do it here as well, which is,
Mm.
the macroeconomic environment for people has been atrocious. It's been really
Yeah.
bad. And I hear from family members and friends, and people like you said, the electricity is through the roof.
Just
In
to
20
clarify, anyone who doesn't know what macroeconomics is, for those of you who don't have any experience in that, macroeconomics is kind of the financial conditions that we currently live in. It's the immediate pressures that we have of bills and how the cost of things. Sorry,
yeah.
go on.
Yeah, no, and you're right, I should have said that. And it basically just comes down to, magic is a luxury item. It's a
Hmm.
luxury. It's hobbies, they're a luxury item. They don't take precedent over food, over bills, over paying your mortgage. So living through the period that we have of record high inflation in the Western world, at least
Hmm.
my experience, yours in the UK, mine in the UK, but obviously, friends in America, and
Yeah.
we can see that too. But inflation has damaged so many people globally. I
Hmm.
think I get it. They want to see a full performance because they want to see, is it just a top change?
Yes.
Because if it's a top change, I can save myself $40 that I can use on food this week. It's
Hmm.
it's not meant to be a joke, because it is it is one of those things that like I see people are annoyed at paying customs fees. They're like, I'm annoyed that I pay customs fees. So I'm like, okay, what can we do? Because we don't make any money on customs fees. So I'm like, okay, we can offer download alternatives, and they can maybe source the gimmick locally themselves. But then that download ends up on a pirate site or on a Chinese website within a matter of hours or days, and it just affects the artist, and it disincentivizes the company to be that open about the performance. So yeah, there's the number one reason we don't do it, and I think we've tested it, so I can say that it's absolutely true. We've tested it multiple times. When we give away the secret and we show what's being done in the vain hope that people will see the value, and then buy it, it never sells well, ever. But when we hide the secret and place all the value in the effect that the secret produces, then it sells better. It's like, okay, what's better for the artist who's getting royalties on these tricks? Is it better that it sells more and they get the value that they deserve for creating those things? Or is it better to win favor from people who are never going to buy it anyway? So we kind of just go with like, all right, let's prioritize the artist. And yeah, I mean, I'm quite active on the cafe. When people comment on our stuff, I'll, jump in there and they'll say, oh my God, is this just a finger palm? And I'm like, yeah, like I'll tell them. But then I'm like, if that's how you reduce magic, please don't buy it. Please don't buy it. Because I'd rather have 100 5-star reviews from people that do value it than 1 3-star that goes, oh, it's just a finger palm.
I get this comment a lot on reviews, and I say, well, yes, but you receive so much extra knowledge, and yes, it is a simple move that maybe you already know, but there's so much more to it. But I think before we get into macroeconomics and need to get Andre Geek on, and we talk about the cafe, I think the cafe was a perfect point. I was a member many years ago. I don't touch the cafe now. I think it's a toxic place. I think it's full of interesting people, and I try to avoid. So I think that is a conversation for another chat. But for now, I think we've spoken about so much that has substance and that can offer magicians interesting choices and improvements in their magic. So for now, I'm going to say, Geraint, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing everything that you shared, because there's been some interesting behind the scenes information that you shared with us. And yes, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for everyone for watching, and hopefully you got some value from it. Yeah, have a good day, everyone.